I'm really excited. We got to get right to the point because we have somebody on the line who I read his book. And you ever read a book and you feel like you are a part of that story? You feel like you were a part of that journey. Our next guest, everybody knows him. Everybody knows him as the man in blue with the blue shirt. You see him up. If you were ever up late at night, especially in my political days when I was up late at night, tossing back and forth, reading through bills, I would see this gentleman on the line. He's the CEO of My Pillow. He's also the founder of the Lindell Foundation and the Lindell Recovery Network. In my opinion, those two are the most important reasons why I believe God has placed them here. I want to introduce to some, and I want to say thank you to Mr. Mike Lindell for joining Black and Right. Mr. Lindell?
Hello, thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Your book is awesome. I crashed, read it, and maybe a day and a half. And the stories that you tell in here, I mean, most people would have never thought that Mr. Mike Lindell went through any of these things. I just want to know, your story really goes to the heart of overcoming adversity. You know, I can recall in some of my own personal dark times, friends and relatives would say to me, you know, you just have to pick yourself up or keep your chin up. Or I don't think people realize just how difficult it is to overcome until they themselves have to face such significant adversity. What are your thoughts on that concept?
Well, I think it is, especially with addiction, it affects everyone. I think I say in my book, no matter how many forks you eat with. And it goes to childhood wounds and fatherlessness and all these things. And I think people, not just that they haven't faced it, or some that are out of, that say, that's why addicts, I think, and people in general can say, oh, I'm not as bad as them, I'm either not as bad as them or I'm worse than them, and they can't relate. And I think a lot of that, what I've tried to do is take, I've been very public with my crack cocaine addiction that I had, and I think where the place we're in now in this country is, addiction is, people are dying, kids are dying, and now I think everyone's aware of it. It crosses over political lines, everything. It's like this is one of the biggest things facing our country, and I believe addiction is the biggest opportunity ever to bring people back to God in revival in this country.
Yes, I totally agree. There was a comment that stuck out to me that from the book, What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Mike Lindell, CEO of My Pillow. You made a comment. You said, "I can't help my past. I can only take my past and help people in the future." That is such a profound and powerful statement. Do you care to expound more on how you came to that point and that comment, and how can it help so many others?
Well, it's hope. It's hope matches. It's like, I think in the book, if you read it there, my friend that was my equal, we had both got into cocaine at the same time in the early 1980s. We both switched to crack in the early 2000s, and he came in. He had been straight for 4 years, and in the book, and he all of a sudden he shows up, and he was my hope match. It's like, people's past. It's like this, and in so many states right now, I think it's over 30 states. We have laws on the books that you have to go to school to be like 4 years to be a counselor for people in addiction. Yeah. And I'm going, I don't want to listen to anybody that's went to school for 4 years to tell me about what I've been through and and where I've been. I want people that have been in the same place I've been, because that gives me hope, and I want to hear from them. And that's where my Lindell Recovery Network, that's where that's going. That's where the best help is.
I agree.
People that have been there helping people, pull people up from that, pull people up. And that's,
Mr. Lindell,
that's the hope.
Let me tell you, I come from a family of former drug addicts. And when Illinois started we were the first in the nation to go after heroin comprehensively. And one of the reasons why was because of what I saw, what I experienced. My own mom was a drug addict, and thank God today she's living for the Lord. And when I saw your book coming out, I said, I have to do whatever I have to do to get him on the line, because I think your story is it is the American story. It is the American dream, and what you've been able to do with that. I mean, I felt like when you were explaining in the book about being on a car chase, I felt like I was in the passenger side with you, looking at you, and we both were. but I really felt that, and I think if wherever you are, go out and buy this book, read this story, because I really believe it will transform you, and you will find yourself somewhere along in that line within that book. So I really appreciate you for writing the book.
Hey, Mike, it's
well, thank you, and I thank you, and it's and people out there. It's not, I was just an everyday guy, and all of a sudden I went from a place of all of a sudden I'm in the White House. The president invited me there for the Manufacturers Summit. All my friends are seeing that, going, "What is he doing there? The sex crack addict sitting in the White House next to the president. Jesus is real." It is miracles, and I think one of the things that people look in their own lives. This is just also a book about entrepreneurship and not to give up and to keep the faith. And if you look in your own life, it's called What Are the Odds? I look at 1 in a million, 1 in a billion. What if this, how did this even, take place? And you add them up and you're going, when does it become a miracle?
Amen.
Hey, Mike, it's Jesus here. So you've been very open and you've really allowed yourself to tell your story. And I was just talking to John about this during the pre-show. Right now we're going through the cancel culture where it's like you stumble, you make a mistake, and people just want you to basically get advantage. How have you been able to fight that cancel culture and continue to tell your story?
Well, it really came up to me with the, when I went all in for the president. Once I met him, I didn't know anything about politics, and I had a private meeting with him in the summer of 2016. He reached out to me about the Made in America and stuff. And boy, I was really, all of a sudden, it was right there, this cancel culture. And I just keep on, I'm on TV so much, and it's like now they almost accept me going, well, Mike's not going to change. He's going to talk, he's going to say good things about the president. He's going to talk about Jesus. But the one thing is they're so greedy that if I'm on their stations, they go ahead and have me on, knowing I'm going to say good things, and they're looking. I think it's we're in a big spiritual warfare in this country,
yes,
and God gave us grace on November 8, 2016, and I strongly believe that addiction is such an opportunity to bring people back to the greatest revival ever, and I just won't stop talking. I was in Iowa the other day with for the caucus.
I saw the pictures.
For helping the president. And I told the guys that were there, I was with Jerry Falwell Jr. and Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, and them. They were sitting in the booth. I said, you know what? I want to take all the bad media. That's who I want to talk to. Well, I went out there, and one of them was I won't name who they are. But I talked for 40 minutes, and finally they walked away saying, okay, I can't take it anymore. I can't take all these good things. I enjoy talking to I like to talk to people get the message out to people on the left, because I think there's so many good people over there that you can talk in and say, hey, you guys, look in your own lives, how everything going on is helping you now that we have going, and pulling them up, pulling them in. And so many things the president is helping my platforms that are out there with addiction and with launching the recovery network, so that you don't have all these things blocking good things from being done. But boy, they sure, I'm right in the thick of it with the news media that, the first time I met the president in the summer of 16, I could tell the media I'm going across the street and they'd all be there with cameras. And then all of a sudden I went back to Minnesota, and I told my board I was going to do a press release, and that I met could be the future president of the United States.
Wow.
And they go, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to hurt us. And I went out of the room, and my CML came out, and she said, you don't, she said, we didn't get this far by you not listening to God. And I went back in there. I said, yeah, we didn't get this far by me not listening to God.
Hey, Mr. Lindell.
I did that press release.
Hey, Mike.
I did that press release. They called me everything.
Hey, Mike. Your assistant said that you can join us for the next segment. That'd be great. If you can just hold the line. You listen to Black and Right on AM 560 The Answer. We'll be right back.
Black and Right continues on AM 560. Once again, here's John Anthony.
Oh, I love that music. Hey, what's going on? You've tuned in to Black and Right with John Anthony and my guest co-host today, Jesus Solo.
So we're sticking to the nickname.
I told you, you got a nickname. I told you I support Trump, so you got to get the nickname. If you're just joining us before the break, we were talking with CEO of MyPillow, Mike Lindell, author of What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO. Mr. Lindell, welcome back to Black and Right.
Thanks for having me back on for another segment here. Yeah.
You were amazing. Thanks so much. Hey, I just want to know, at any point during this journey, how close did you ever come to giving up?
Well, I never ever did really. When I had my pillow and it was just a pulse there, I think, in the book, when I quit all my, the day that I quit all that God set me free of the desire for all my addictions, that day I knew, people say, was that your bottom? Was that your bottom? And I say, well, yeah, it was a bottom. I made sure I didn't have any money and all that stuff. But I knew that I couldn't, the next day it was going to be, if I didn't quit everything that day, the second part of my life was, I would lose the calling. I would only get to be I think in the book I describe it as having the second feature of a movie. And the second feature was either going to be my calling or it was going to be wherever this bad path I was on was going to take me. And so that's kind of where that was. But as far as giving up, I never, I've had, in the book that I've had some very, very low points, but I always had that, like in the old days, if we had black and white TVs, we turned them off and it would go down to this little tiny dot and you'd turn them back on. Was I a tiny dot at times? Yes, many times. But I always had hope. And that was a big thing. I always had hope. And maybe that was God chasing me all that time. And I didn't do a full surrender to Jesus till February 18, 2017.
Wow.
Wow. But I always had that. I'd be telling my friends when the bars closed and stuff, I'd go, we'd be out doing cocaine, doing stuff, whatever. And I'd be telling them about Revelation in the Bible and end times that I read about in jail. And they'd all quit that. They'd all quit that night. And I'd wake up in the morning and go, what did I tell them? I'm losing friends here.
When reading the book, it was a couple of, I highlighted throughout the book, but it was a part on page 36. You said, it took a couple of weeks before I got up enough courage to face people. The first place I went to was Size Bar in Chaska, where I had been hanging out for months. The owner, Lou, walked up to me and said, matter-of-factly, Mike, you need to leave town. You are never, ever going to live this down. And then there, on the next page, you say, you are wrong. You wanted to go and shake everybody and get in everybody's face and says, you are wrong. I am a good person. You had so many of those incidents in your book,
right.
and it's just amazing the mental fortitude that you had to endure. What would you say to somebody that's listening right now? What is that hope? What was that driver that kept you going?
It's, I guess, this knowing deep down who you really are, but yet inside of me, I had this, that I wasn't good enough. I was, my self-worth. I think people out there that's why I couldn't talk to people, back then I was very kind of introverted with, because you can't get rejected if you don't talk to people. And for other people out there, I think if, that drove me, and it was like, you know what, I'm not a bad person. And you don't know me. I think there's many times in the book, you have no idea who I am, and you're judging me. Wow. That was I think the people that, I got, so it was almost, I would get angry, but then yet I would be, it would be a sadness in me that I couldn't just, want to tell everyone, hey, I'm a good person. You just don't know me, and here's who I am. And I think that holds a lot of people back, and they just, that's where your addictions come in. And I think for people out there that, I think those kind of feelings manifest into addictions where you gotta, you live in shame or live in fear of telling people who you really are. And that's so much a part of what my recovery network's going to do is get people, replace those bad feelings about people out there.
Well, that's the last question I want to ask you. And then I know you're a busy man. I know you have to get going. But how can people get involved in the Lindell Foundation and the Lindell Recovery Network? Is there a website? Are there fundraisers? I mean, how do people go about?
The Lindell Recovery Network is not. It's not out there yet. It'll be about 2 months. I've been working on it for 2 years, but you can go to michaeljlindell.com and you can learn about all the stuff that's coming. But if you have an addict, if you have someone out there that is addicted, in the meantime, I can tell you one of the things that there's no better place to go than a faith-based treatment center, because they're the only ones that work. And I'm saying that. I mean, your Teen Challenge, Salvation Army, Union Gospel, I've vetted over 3,800 of them in the U.S. that work. But you need to get to a place where they can address why you were an addict in the first place. That's that simple. I do not believe that addiction's a disease in any way, shape, or form. It comes from childhood. Like in my book, my parents divorced when I was 7, when divorces weren't common, and it's childhood wounds, fatherlessness, and all these things. So you can keep up on it. Just keep checking my website. It'll be about 2 months.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I can't say enough about getting the book. It's going to help so many people.
It's an amazing book. And do you want to make an announcement here on Black and Right today for something that's going to be happening in Minnesota maybe soon?
Yeah. Well, they want me to run. I'm actually in Washington, D.C. right now. I've been talking to many of the governors, and the president wants me to help run the Minnesota campaign for him.
Yes.
But I'm also very much considering running for governor.
I will make sure I make a lot of trips to Minnesota. Mike Lindell, thanks so much for joining Black and Right today.
Thanks for having me on. God bless.
God bless you, sir.